Hello everyone. I'm so happy to have you here with my family today. My name is Nham, and I live in a small village in northern Vietnam. I work as a tailor from home, and whenever I have some free time, I enjoy cooking simple homemade meals for my family. Today, I'd like to share a peaceful day in my life with you, from my morning routine to preparing lunch for my family. If you enjoy watching simple countryside life in Vietnam, I hope you'll join me throughout today's video. That is how every morning of mine begins. I open my door and head to the bathroom to get ready for the day ahead. I turned on the light and stepped into the bathroom to start my morning. I picked up my toothbrush and put a little toothpaste on it to start my personal hygiene routine. After brushing my teeth, I take a little facial cleanser and gently wash my face to feel more awake. I rinsed my face with cool water and gently patted it dry. That alone was enough to make me feel more awake. After leaving the bathroom, I gathered the dirty clothes and put them in the washing machine. I add just the right amount of detergent to the machine, select the appropriate setting, and press the start button. From now on, the machine will handle this task for me. The washing machine has started running. I opened the fridge to get a few eggs to prepare breakfast. I just rendered some pork fat this morning to keep on hand. Now I'm tidying up the pot and getting ready to cook breakfast. My husband just finished breakfast, so I washed the dishes right away to keep things tidy. While I was at it, I also cleaned the pot I had used earlier to render fat. These are daily chores, but I'm so used to them now that they don't feel like a burden anymore. After finishing the cleaning, I started preparing breakfast for the whole family. I put a few eggs in the pot to boil first. I put the eggs in a pot, covered them with water, and placed it on the stove. They'll be cooked in just a few minutes. While waiting for the eggs to cook, I went out to get the bouquet of flowers I had bought at the market this morning. I bought them to offer at the altar of the Lord. There are many churches in my hometown, and since most people here are Catholic, offering flowers has become a very familiar part of daily life. The altar at home is placed quite high, so every time I change the flowers, I have to stand on a chair to reach it. I bring up the flowers to replace them. I take down the old bouquet before arranging the new one. I do this regularly, so it has become a habit. After finishing with the flowers, I put the chair back in the tailor shop. I placed the old bouquet into a plastic bag to dispose of later. When I returned to the kitchen, the eggs were just perfectly cooked. I turn off the heat and transfer the eggs to a bowl to let them cool down a bit. I grabbed a jar of salt and took my bowl of eggs into the tailor shop. My breakfast was simple, but it gave me enough energy to start the workday. Before eating, I make the sign of the cross and say a short prayer to thank God. Please join me for breakfast. Growing up in a large family, breakfast was rarely as substantial as it is today. Many days, I'd just make do with a sweet potato or a bowl of leftover rice before heading off to school or work. That's why I'm still so grateful that our whole family can now enjoy a simple meal together to start the day. Please join me for breakfast. After breakfast, I would start work at the tailor shop. The first thing I did was draft patterns onto newspaper. I had been doing it this way for years, as it made cutting the fabric easier and more precise. I have been in the tailoring trade for many years now. In the past, everything was done by hand, without the wide range of tools available today. There were days when I would sew from morning till night just to finish a few outfits. Although the work is meticulous and time-consuming, it brings me great joy whenever a customer fits perfectly into a garment I have made. I started my journey in tailoring at a very young age, and I have dedicated more than half my life to this craft. Learning the trade back then wasn't as simple as it is today. One had to observe, memorize, and practice repeatedly to master the skills. There were times I had to take a garment apart and re-sew it simply because of a single misplaced stitch or a slight error during cutting. That is why, to this day, I make it a habit to draft a paper pattern before cutting into any fabric. I carefully check every detail before placing the pattern on the material. While this extra step takes a bit more time, it gives me peace of mind and helps prevent fabric waste. Tailoring demands a great deal of patience. There are moments when I spend hours just refining a tiny detail. Yet, seeing a customer smile with satisfaction when wearing a garment I've made makes all the effort worthwhile. Perhaps that is why, after all these years, I still love this profession and look forward to sitting at my sewing machine every day. The tailoring trade has changed significantly over the years. With the growing availability of stylish, affordable, ready-to-wear clothing, many people now choose to buy off the rack rather than have garments custom-made. Even so, I still have loyal customers who have stuck with my shop for a long time. They say that made-to-measure clothes simply fit better and feel more comfortable. Hearing a customer say they look great in an outfit, or seeing them return to have something new made, gives me the motivation to keep going. After all this time, I still find joy in sitting at my familiar cutting table and sewing machine every day. I had only been cutting fabric for a short while when I glanced at the clock and realized it was nearly lunchtime. Time always flies at the tailor shop. Once you focus on the work, the entire morning slips by before you know it. I set my work aside to head into the kitchen and prepare lunch for the whole family. I measure out just the right amount of rice for the whole family and rinse it thoroughly several times until the water runs clear. Then, I put the rice into the electric rice cooker and add the appropriate amount of water, relying on habit. Having cooked rice for years, I can tell just by looking at the rice how much water is needed to ensure it cooks up perfectly. Soft and tender, neither too dry nor too mushy. After rinsing the rice, I brought the pot inside and placed it into the rice cooker. Then, I plugged it in and pressed the cook button. In just a little while, the whole family would have a pot of hot rice to enjoy with lunch. I went to the market this morning and bought some fresh field crabs to make soup for the family. This dish is a familiar favorite back in my hometown, especially on hot days. Everyone loves it because it is easy to eat and has the natural sweetness of the field crabs. After thoroughly washing the field crabs to remove all the mud and dirt, I stand at the sink and begin removing their shells one by one. Since the crabs are quite small, I have to hold each one individually to process it, making this a rather time-consuming task. I always keep a firm grip to prevent them from dropping, while also keeping an eye on their claws, which remain very strong. A moment of inattention could easily result in a painful pinch. I got pinched quite a few times when I first started preparing them, so I am much more careful now. In my hometown, many families still enjoy making field crab soup because the ingredients are incredibly fresh, and the flavour is far superior to that of pre-ground crab. Although the preparation takes some effort, I believe the result is well worth it. Whenever I make this dish, I strive to handle every step meticulously from the very beginning to ensure the soup turns out delicious. By carefully removing the shells and processing each crab individually, the subsequent steps become much easier. My work as a seamstress has taught me patience, so I don't find tasks requiring such attention to detail to be overly burdensome. Perhaps because I've been doing this for years, I simply work at a steady pace, and before I know it, the entire basket of crabs is finished. After removing all the shells, I carefully scoop out the crab roe and set it aside in a small bowl. I handle it very gently to keep the roe intact, as it is what gives the soup its rich aroma and creamy texture. This step requires a bit of patience, but once you get the hang of it, it doesn't take too long. After removing the crab roe, I place the crab into a blender with a little water. Once blended, I pour the mixture through a sieve to extract the liquid. This liquid will be used to make the soup, while the solid crab residue is discarded. Taking a little extra care with this step ensures the soup turns out clear, sweet, and aromatic. While waiting for the crab liquid to settle, I begin preparing the remaining ingredients for the soup. First, I peel and finely chop the shallot, which I'll sauté later with the crab roe to release a fragrant aroma. Next, I peel and wash the loofah, cutting it into bite-sized pieces. Loofah adds a lovely sweetness to crab soup, and cooking it just until tender preserves its refreshing, delicate flavour. Then, I sort through the greens, discarding any tough or old leaves, and wash them thoroughly several times to remove all grit and dust. I have everything prepped and neatly arranged so that when it's time to cook, I can simply add the ingredients to the pot one by one. I prefer to take things one step at a time rather than rushing. Although prepping the ingredients takes a few extra minutes, it makes the actual cooking process much smoother and less hectic. Rustic dishes often don't require elaborate techniques. Fresh ingredients and the right cooking method are all it takes to create something delicious. Field crab soup is a favorite in my family, especially on hot days. The soup has a natural sweetness from the crab, and the addition of loofah and greens makes it incredibly refreshing. Whenever I make this dish, I'm reminded of family meals from the past, times when we would gather around a simple yet wonderfully cozy table. With these ingredients ready to go, I'm all set to start cooking the soup for today's lunch. Before making crab soup, I prepared a plate of stir-fried noodles with minced meat for the family to enjoy first. I sautéed some shallots until fragrant, then added the minced meat and stir-fried it. Next, I seasoned the meat with a little bouillon powder and added a touch of caramel sauce to give it a nice color. Finally, I tossed in the noodles and stirred everything together until well coated with the seasonings. It is a quick and simple dish, yet my whole family loves it. After sautéing the meat, I add the shallots and loofah, stirring until fragrant before pouring in the strained crab broth. I cook it over medium heat, avoiding vigorous stirring so the crab solids form attractive curds. Once the broth begins to simmer gently, I add the greens and cook for a little longer. Finally, I carefully add the crab roe, and the delicious field crab soup for lunch is nearly ready. I boiled the piece of meat earlier, and now I'm taking it out to slice it into bite-sized pieces. After slicing, I noticed the inside was still a bit pink, so I'm putting it back in the pot to boil for a little longer until it's fully cooked. Cooking it thoroughly gives the whole family peace of mind, and the meat still retains its natural sweetness. Once all the dishes were ready, I arranged them on a tray and brought them into the room so the whole family could enjoy the meal in a cooler setting. Please join us for the meal. That wraps up today's video. Thank you all for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Wishing everyone good health. Goodbye.